Welcome back. You're watching Newscentre. We have with us former Ambassador Neelam Deo, Ambassador Rahul Chhabra, also with us Brahma Chellaney. Ambassador Deo, let's talk about the Indian Prime Minister's key agenda. Looking at the economic situation back home, challenges related to inflation, issues related to supply chain. What do you think will be the Prime Minister's priority as he goes about meeting the world leaders? We believe he has at least 8 to 9 meetings with the German Chancellor, with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, President Macron. So what do you think will be the big focus for the Prime Minister at the G20?
So I think that he will have 1 or 2 big focus items to focus on. One is, of course, the energy. The pressure that has been continuously brought on India not to buy oil from Russia. It's very heartening that India has stood its ground and has said that it will buy cheap oil wherever it can get it. And it has pointed out that the Europeans themselves, the West, is itself continuing to receive oil from Russia, which comes by pipeline. It's only trying to block those supplies which go by tanker. That is a big, important issue because now the West is trying to impose a price cap on Russian oil and to withhold insurance facilities for ships that will carry Russian oil. That will complicate our situation, but that is a big issue. The other big issues are, of course, the price of food and the price of fertilizers and the contribution of these 3 combined to generating inflation all over the world, but also in India. Now, inflation, of course, means price rise and it hurts the people of India, but it also means that the Indian currency loses value against a strengthening dollar. So you're paying more for everything you have done in the past, as well as in trying to raise money on the international market. Peace is important, and I think there have been some noises here and there for India to try to mediate. I don't think there's any particular reason for India to get into something where the 2 sides have fixed, entrenched positions. And I do want to say that, President Zelensky of Ukraine has addressed every forum under the sun, but he is now raising issues of war reparations, and I think the West is supporting him in that. I think we should not forget history. The last time countries were forced to pay war reparations, Germany, you actually had the rise of the Nazis and the havoc that created on the world. I think we should be looking for maybe peace in stages. The first thing to try to get is a ceasefire, not a full-scale peace, because that is something you have to work towards. And peace will require give and take, as all negotiations are required. There cannot be a situation where only one side gets to achieve everything it wants. At least for now, Russia has not been defeated militarily.
Right. Ambassador Chhabra, to get you back in, India assumes the presidency of the G20 from the 1st of December. This will be an occasion where Prime Minister can personally invite many of the world leaders for the G20 in India in September. Give us a sense of the priorities that India will have over the next 1 year during the course of our presidency.
The basic priority will be, as has been enunciated, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, 1 Earth, 1 family, 1 planet. I mean, there is no planet B, there's no option, other option. So I think, and the youth of the world have sort of understood that message. So that's the broad message that we'll be conveying. In addition to that, we'll also be sort of showcasing where we have reached in terms of our digital technologies, health infrastructure, what we did during the pandemic, how we sort of were able to counter that. So we'll be showcasing that. We'll also be looking at how to move forward, like women-led development is one of the things. Climate financing is another issue. So these are the broad themes that we will be looking at the way forward. And then there's under a broad theme of shape the future. So, even climate financing, we've been talking about it for some time, but now we need to sort of get out of the rut wherein multilateral and bilateral institutions are not finding it enough. So, we're looking at private financing to come in to fill this huge void and gap in climate financing. But then maybe the role of multilateral financing agencies changing to sort of act as guarantors to this sort of financing. So this will be the broad trend and the broad sort of, we are also introducing something called Startup 20. So from the many groups of the B20, the Business 20, the Labor 20, the Student 20, the Youth 20, we'll be having a Startup 20. And we are also probably, we could look at, the G20 does not have a permanent secretariat. So that's one sort of lacuna that is there. So institutional memory is short. So now with the digital infrastructure in place pretty much all over, so that may be one way of, rather than putting up a physical infrastructure, they could look at a digital platform to sort of have the institutional memory for the G20. So there's enough on India's plate to sort of handle for 1 year.
All right. All right, so there will be a packed agenda 1st December onwards. Brahma Chellaney, final comments to you. We also saw a brief meeting between Prime Minister Modi, President Biden. They reviewed the bilateral relationship, also sectors such as critical and emerging technologies, advanced commuting, artificial intelligence. They also discussed the Quad partnership and the I2U2 as well. How would you describe this as a small pull aside on the sidelines of the G20 or an informal chat? This cannot be called a full bilateral, but how do you think US and India are going to work together in the days to come? Some of the priorities for the India-US partnership.
The Bali summit will be remembered for the Xi Jinping-Joe Biden meeting. There was very little discussion between Biden and Modi, but the US-India relationship is critical both for US interests and India's interests. As far as the Quad is concerned, given the fact that Biden is pursuing a softer, more conciliatory approach toward China, as a result of that, the security agenda of the Quad has taken the backseat. That security agenda has been put on the back burner, and the focus has been put on universal challenges, from resilient supply chains to global warming. Climate change, as you know, is Biden's pet subject. Quad is a 4-country small group. It's in no position to deal with global challenges. Its focus ought to be on the challenges in the Asian regions or the broader Indo-Pacific region. Unfortunately, because of this war in Ukraine and the new Cold War between Washington and Moscow, US policies leeway in relation to China has become increasingly constricted, and therefore the Quad security agenda is unlikely to advance in any meaningful manner. And the Quad was intended to be primarily a security initiative, and the Trump administration resurrected it with the goal of addressing the security challenges in the Indo-Pacific, especially the maritime challenges. But today, given the constraints that US foreign policy faces, it cannot take on both Russia and China simultaneously. Therefore, the Quad is going to be a loser in terms of its agenda.
All right, we've run out of time, but Brahma Chellaney, Ambassador Rahul Chhabra, Ambassador Neelam Deo, thank you very much for joining us here on Newscentre, giving us your view on day one of the G20 and how everyone is talking about the Biden-Xi meeting and how the summit will be remembered for that critical meeting between US and China. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscentre. Don't go anywhere. News continues on CNBC-TV.